Welcome to the Monday edition of the 14. I'm your host, Chris Lee. Barry Allen joins me today. Barry, let's start by congratulating the SEC on its 2021 national title in baseball. Don't know who it's going to be yet, but what we do know is it will be a team from the SEC, either Vanderbilt or Mississippi State.
Yeah, another all-SEC final. Fourth time that's happened. Out of the six that's happened in Omaha, four of the six have been SEC, all-SEC finals. And, I don't think anybody's real surprised that Vanderbilt and Mississippi State made it through to get there. And I think it'll be a real exciting, real entertaining finish to the World Series that, has been dominated in the past by SEC teams. I think there's been a team in the finals, at least one team in the finals, 12 of the last 13 years, and it will, cap a school year that's kind of dominated by the SEC. With Alabama winning in football and Kentucky winning the volleyball national championship, and I think LSU and Arkansas won the men's and women's track and field, and I'm sure I'm missing some, but quite a few teams that won national championships this year, from the SEC, and this will be another one. Two really good teams, two kind of, fairly similar teams, coming in as we break this down a little bit more today. But I think two teams that are, fairly similar in the way they play.
All right, before we get to the baseball, obviously Vanderbilt got here in a strange way with the 13-man NC State squad on Friday. Vanderbilt, frankly, looked tense. NC State played like it had nothing to lose and darn near pulled one off. Vanderbilt wins that one 3-1, thanks to great pitching from Kumar Rocker and Luke Murphy. That was the guy who closed for them, who were great. And frankly, I think that got lost some in the storyline. Is State still had some great hitters, and Vanderbilt shut them down. But you hate to see things decided, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. I have opinions on this, but you hate to see things decided the way they were over the weekend with Vanderbilt advancing.
Yeah, and I want to say this from the start. There's a lot of things out there, in Twitter land and Facebook land and all this kind of stuff. Vanderbilt's not the villain here. I mean, Vanderbilt benefited from the policies that they have in the NCAA, their guidelines they set up. But Vanderbilt's not the bad guy here. And this is not, the world against Vanderbilt, although that's the way they're making it. But Vanderbilt's not the villain in this situation. It's life. It's how things happen. Everybody has bad, things happen to them in life, and and you have to move on. And it's an unfortunate situation for North Carolina State. I'm not going to get political in this, but had they done everything they probably could have done leading up to Omaha, probably doesn't happen. But it didn't, and then it did happen. And, the NCAA has policies and procedures and things that they do. And, they're not the first team that's been kicked out of the NCAA tournament this year. VCU got removed from the men's basketball tournament. Rice's women's volleyball team was removed because they didn't pass protocol. Two teams were dismissed from the men's hockey tournament, including the number 2 national seed Michigan, because they didn't make protocol. And so it's happened. And no, that didn't happen in the Frozen Four or the Final Four of women's volleyball or the Final Four of basketball, but it's happened. And unfortunately for NC State, it happened, in the semifinals, I guess, of the College World Series. VCU, I think, was scheduled to play Oregon. So Oregon got a break and got a second, they're playing a team in the second round that's already played 2 games. So Oregon hadn't played a game, and their opponent, NCAA tournament, is playing their third game in 4 days, and Oregon hadn't played a game. So, it's happened in the past, and it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate for North Carolina State. Maybe they beat Vanderbilt on Saturday. Maybe they don't. Maybe they don't. We don't know. Nobody thought they were going to win and go to the World Series after losing 21-2 or whatever it was to Arkansas the first night, but they came back. But because they beat Vanderbilt 1-0 was no guarantee they were going to come back and beat Vanderbilt again, on Saturday. So, but it is unfortunate, and unfortunately that was the headlines Friday and Saturday and dominated the headlines, and the pitching performance by Rocker, and the the late rain and stuff with the Texas Mississippi State game. That game kind of got lost because it didn't end till 2:00 in the morning. And I will say this, they kicked North Carolina State out of the College World Series at like 2:00 in the morning. I mean, that's probably got to be handled a little bit better. But I mean, I guess you got to make the decision. But press release at 2 a.m. Mike could have been done a little bit better. Could have been handled a little bit better, to make North Carolina State feel maybe a little better about how things went. But, that's the way it was.
All right, let's talk baseball. First team to 7 hits in each game wins. We've joked about it, but really these teams are not exactly hitting their stride in terms of the lineups right now.
No, in this World Series, these two offenses have not been very good. They just simply have not. Vanderbilt's hitting 217. They have 31 hits. Mississippi State's hitting 215. They have 28 hits, 7 hits a game. Vanderbilt has scored in 9 of 36 possible innings. Mississippi State has scored in 8 of 36 possible innings. Both teams have some really dramatic comeback wins. Mississippi State, two of their 3 wins were, I guess all of their, but 2 of their 3 wins they had to come from behind to win. Vanderbilt had 2 wins where they had to walk off and win comeback wins in their games. So very similar teams offensively. Vanderbilt scored 16 runs. Mississippi State scored 17. Mississippi State has 2 homers. Vanderbilt has 3. Their strikeouts are fairly similar, 37 for Mississippi State, 35 for Vanderbilt. They've walked pretty close to the same number of times, 17 for Mississippi State, 16 for Vanderbilt. So the offenses out in Omaha for these two teams have not been what we're used to seeing during the course of the year. And, I'm not sure the way the pitching staffs are that's going to change in this series. I expect some low-scoring games. I mean, you'll talk about pitching here in a minute, but Vanderbilt's got a 1.89 ERA and 59 strikeouts in 38 innings. And Mississippi State, who had one game that against Texas where the bullpen kind of blew up, has got a 4.25 ERA, but still 47 strikeouts in 36 innings. They struck out 21 in the first 9 innings. They only have 26 strikeouts in the other 27 innings in the tournament, which is interesting. So you would expect with the pitching staffs that these two teams have that they will dominate the offenses, in this series. And we see that with Vanderbilt and Mississippi State struggling to score and struggling to hit, so far in Omaha.
Well, let's mention this too. The opposition wasn't exactly the same on both sides. I think that State faced much tougher arms than did Vanderbilt. That said, I think that the pitching that Vanderbilt pulled off, which has been amazing in the tournament, I think they've got a 2.04 ERA in the NCAA tournament total. And I think that Vandy's pitchers, what they've done in this tournament is more impressive because I think that the lineups they had to face. I mean, you can argue that NC State, Stanford, Arizona, maybe top 5 in the country in terms of hitting. So really, these teams came out of very distinctly different sides of the bracket because I think that Vanderbilt faced some arms that weren't there on the State side of the bracket. But I think what Vanderbilt did pitching-wise and the guys that had to face day in and day out, that's worth a mention too.
Yeah, I think when you look at, they played Arizona in the first game, who led the nation in runs scored, and then their next game they get Virginia, who's got some pop and has played really well late in the year, and then they have to come back and play Stanford, who led the NCAA tournament in home runs with 21 the day that they signed up for Vanderbilt in the an elimination game. So they have faced some of the better offensive teams in Omaha, and you look at that, it's still that way. I mean, Virginia hit 327, Stanford hit 319, and North Carolina State hit 233 in their 3 games. I mean, those are the 3 teams Vanderbilt faced. I'm sorry,
you're right. The second time Vanderbilt got NC State.
Yeah, but I said Virginia.
You said Virginia, but that's okay.
Virginia.
Same league.
But the three teams that the teams that Vanderbilt played, two of the top three offenses in Omaha were two of those teams. Mississippi State played Virginia, who had the highest batting average at 327, but they also played Texas, who hit 201, the worst offensive team out there. They averaged only 6 hits a game and just barely 5 runs a game in Omaha and punched out 62 times. And of course, a lot of that's got to do with Mississippi State too on their pitching staff. But yeah, Vanderbilt probably pitching wise, bullpen wise, may have been a little better in Omaha than what Mississippi State we're used to seeing. Luke Murphy's been untouchable in Omaha. 3 appearances, he's not giving up a run. He struck out 10 in 6 innings. Teams are hitting 143 against him. Leiter through the complete game shutout, only gave up the 1 run. Rocker was, after the first inning against Arizona, he was almost untouchable the rest of the way in Omaha. He gave up 3 runs in the first inning, only gave up 1 earned run the rest of the way. Maldonado has been really good. McIlvain has, come in 3 1/3 scoreless innings with 6 strikeouts. Fisher's giving him some work. Christian Little, didn't get the benefit of a good defense, and that's been one of the things that's been Vanderbilt's troubles in Omaha is their defense. But I think Vanderbilt's pitching has been really good in Omaha, and Mississippi State, save a game or two. Maybe not quite that way. Landon Sims has been really solid. He's given up a run in 7 innings, punched out 7, has not walked a hitter. 130 batting average. Bednar's had 2 great starts for them. 22 strikeouts in 12 innings. Harding, got him into the 5th inning in a game, and then their bullpen's kind of, McLeod did not have a good start in his 1 start against Virginia. And, they got roughed up Friday night a little bit by Texas. Their bullpen did, but by and large, they've, fairly well. 47 innings, 47 strikeouts in 36 innings, and held opponents to 226. But that 4.25 ERA, a lot of that's going to come from McLeod and Harding, who gave up, 7 earned runs in just 6 innings of work. So, those 2 guys, that's going to skew that a little bit. But Vanderbilt's been very impressive on the mound, this whole time, and I don't see that changing in the next couple of days either.
Vanderbilt's a heavy favorite Monday night and in the series. I think Monday's going to be interesting because Vanderbilt just isn't hitting anybody right now. I mean, went up against some pitchers with some not very good earned run averages and just weren't hitting those guys. I think it got in Vanderbilt's head late. Christian McLeod has really struggled for Mississippi State. I have a feeling he will pitch better tonight against Vanderbilt, given the way Vandy's hit lately. I think Jack Leiter right now feels like he can get anybody out. I think this is going to be a low-scoring game, Barry. One thing I'm looking for is how deep each team has to go into its bullpen, because I think tomorrow is going to be a by committee for each team.
Yeah, I think Leiter-McLeod tonight is an outstanding matchup. I do expect McLeod to pitch better. He's had some rest. His 4 postseason starts, and that does include the SEC tournament with Tennessee. He's 1-2 with an 11.25 ERA, 23 strikeouts in 16 innings, but he's given up 20 runs and 20 hits. Now, 12 of those 23 strikeouts came against VCU, so he only has 11 strikeouts in the other 3 starts or the other 11 innings that he's pitched in the postseason. Leiter the other night, you got to win. Vanderbilt's got to win that game that he pitches against North Carolina State. I mean, he strikes out 15, gives up 1 run in 8 innings. I mean, Vanderbilt's got to get 2 runs. I mean, that's just you've got to score 2 runs and win the game. You cannot lose a game 1-0 ever. I mean, you just cannot do it. And sometimes the pitcher dominates. And I thought he pitched really well, but I didn't think Vanderbilt was very good offensively that night with just 2 singles, and they both came with 2 outs. And doesn't really give yourself a chance to win a game when both of your hits are with 2 outs, and you just don't really have. When you got to get 3 or 4 hits in a row together with 2 out, that the odds are just not with you. But both of these guys have been good during the season. McLeod has struggled down the stretch. I think Leiter's been better down the stretch. You wrote in our preview today how he's pitched since he took that weekend off and how well he's pitched, and so I think this will be a really good game tonight. I think they both teams want both starters to go deep, because I do think tomorrow night is, the Johnny Holstaff bullpen game as we see it. That both teams could use multiple pitchers, 3, 4, 5 in the game tomorrow night to get back to Wednesday night, which could also be a really dynamite game with Rocker and Bednar maybe trying to hook up in Game 3 for a national championship if the two teams split the first two games tonight and tomorrow.
Well, let's talk about lineups. I think with Mississippi State, I like their lineup better heading into the series just because I think you have Rowdy Jordan and Tanner Allen who have so much experience. They've been so consistent. And I think if you're looking for one team that you say, okay, who can generate a big hit, I like what State can do there better with Allen and Jordan. Now, Vanderbilt's got some guys, and we'll talk about them in a minute, but these are two kids who seemingly have played at State forever. Tanner Allen in particular has come up with a bunch of big hits. We have talked about how well Rowdy Jordan hit within the SEC. So that's one place, if you're looking for where the matchup advantage could swing, I think it is those two kids for Mississippi State.
Yeah, and I think when the season is over, they're both eligible for Mississippi State teachers retirement. I think they've put their 25 years in. It seems like they've been there a long time, and they've been to Omaha 3 times, and Jordan has played much better as the season has gone along. He's been traditionally a slow starter, was again this year, but has really played well in Omaha, hitting .353. Scored only 2 runs. The 6 hits and the 1 hit by pitch. He's been on base 7 times, but only a .389 on base percentage, and scored 2 runs. But kind of a catalyst for them, and a key for him is he led off the game 2 in Nashville against Jack Leiter with a home run. And Mississippi State will be the visiting team tonight. Vanderbilt's home team tonight, and if they play Wednesday, it will be the home team again on Wednesday. I believe I read that correctly. But these two guys have been the catalyst. Allen has struggled a little bit in Omaha, saved the 3-run homer that he hit the other night against Virginia. He's 4 for 17. That's the only home run he's hit. 3 of the 4 RBI came there. His on base percentage is only .278. He's only scored 2 runs. So it shows you how tough it's been for them to score. And once you get past those 2 guys in their lineup, it really, really, even with Jordan to Allen tails off, but it really tails off. Clark is 3 for 13, but he struck out 8 times. Hancock is 3 for 14. Logan Tanner is 3 for 15. He's punched out 7 times. Brad Cumbus, 3 for 15, 5 strikeouts. Cameron James, 2 for 14, 6 strikeouts. And then Forsythe and DeBrule are just 2 for 19 combined in the series. But now DeBrule 1 for 10. He has walked 6 times, and I think he had a game-winning hit or game-tying hit in one of the games against Texas. No, he had the key RBI that ended up being the winning run against Virginia. He drove in an insurance run for one of his 3 RBIs. So once you get past Jordan and Allen in Omaha, it's been tough sledding for Mississippi State. Trying to generate some offense, and for a team that doesn't bunt much, they don't have a sacrifice bunt in Omaha. They only have 13 for the year. They have 3 stolen bases in 5 attempts, and a huge one by Braylon Skinner Saturday night to steal second. Here's a guy that came off the bench. He hadn't done anything the whole game. He comes in, pinch runs, and on the first pitch, he takes off and swipes second, and he allows Leggett to get the base hit to win the game. So they're going to have to generate some offense against this Vanderbilt pitching staff, and that's something that they have, they've not been able to do consistently in during the course of this World Series.
Let's talk Vandy a minute. That lineup has not played the style of ball it did throughout the year when it was a lot of home runs and doubles, a lot of steals. I think there's been a lot of questions about Enrique Bradfield Jr. and whether maybe there's an injury because they're not running him anything close to the way they ran him during the season. Now, that said, the other day, he went 1st to 3rd on a single where I didn't think he had a great shot at beating it, and he did. So now I don't know if you watch him run, and Enrique Bradfield at 90% still looks really, really fast. So there's that. Javier Vaz has kind of been one of the catalysts for them. They moved him up in the lineup to the 5 hole the other day. I don't know if maybe they'll hit him too. He's a pretty good contact bat and can run. So I think if you have Bradfield and he at the top of the lineup, that makes it interesting. Dominic Keegan and Isaiah Thomas, though, Barry, those are the two kids who could really carry Vanderbilt at times. Keegan has been hot and cold, has had some big home runs in this tournament for them, including one the other night when Vanderbilt was down 4-0 to Stanford that started that comeback. Thomas got benched for the last game against NC State, came in the ninth inning as a defensive guy, but Vanderbilt's got to get those two kids hitting. Carter Young, another guy, has got 16 bombs, but he's a really good shortstop, but he's had more errors than hits in this tournament. That was not something they expected. He's a kid who's recovering from a dislocated shoulder, but Vandy's going to have some of the big guns that it counted on during the season deliver. It is one without them, but I think it's going to need some of that against Mississippi State to get out of this.
Yeah, Keegan is 6 for 18, in Omaha. Their leading hitter, if you take Spencer Jones, who's 2 for 5, but, their leading hitter in Omaha. Nolan has 5 hits, Vaz 3 hits and 4 stolen bases. And you talk about Thomas and Young, they're 2 for 26. 2 for 26 with 9 strikeouts. And Young, as you mentioned, 2 errors and 1 hit. He's got more errors than he does hits in the World Series. And so that's been an issue for Vanderbilt too. Their lineup. Bradfield has not attempted a stolen base in Omaha. I think that's interesting. And he'll go against one of the best, in this series. Mississippi State's catcher, yeah. Logan Tanner's a really good catcher and can throw out a lot of guys. And so that may be an issue, in this series too. Can they get him on track? And if they try to run him, can he actually steal, against Logan Tanner? They might be able to run on Harding. He's really slow to the plate. I'm not sure about the other guys, but that's going to be an interesting matchup for Vanderbilt on their offense as well. Just as we just talked about, it seemed like we talked about the whole time. It's just, 2 really good pitching staffs going against 2 teams that have not hit consistently and struggle to score runs in Omaha.
Well, the other thing about that, McLeod's a lefty, which lefties don't always hold runners on better, but you would generally expect that. Harding is a lefty. I don't know if we see him on Tuesday. He threw 82 pitches on the 25th. That'd be the 29th. I suspect that if you see him, it's probably for maybe a 2 to 3 inning start, which they did at times because sometimes he did pitch out the bullpen. But that is interesting, too, that Tanner Allen's a good catcher. Plus, you could see a pretty good presence to lefties. Their bullpen, Cam Tuller's really the only lefty. It's pretty right-handed heavy after that. But you could see a pretty decent lefty presence on the mound depending on how long those guys could go.
Yeah, I was thinking more like Harding pitching tomorrow or Wednesday, not necessarily tonight, but just more him and getting McLeod in one game and Harding in another game. That would give you two left-handed guys in 2 of the 3 games. The teams are 3 for 4 in stolen bases against Mississippi State and Omaha. They haven't run much, but when they've run, they've been successful 75% of the time. So that is something that I think Vanderbilt's going to want to do with Vaz and Bradfield is try to force the action. And I think, Chris Lemonis, I can't think of people's names. He said they thought they needed to do that a little bit against Texas the other night, force the action a little bit, maybe more running, more bunt and run, hit and run. And you saw that in the 9th inning. When he stole second with Skinner, he put him in the game. He steals second immediately. He never even hesitated. And then they got the 1-1 Leggett hit the 1-1 slider over the shortstop's head into left center, and Skinner easily scored. He got a good read on it and easily scored. And so they did force the action. That a team that doesn't do that a lot, when they get to Omaha, things change a little bit, and you have to kind of change the way you do things. And so they did force the action in that game, and they were able to, score the run and win the game.
All right, we got to wrap up here in a second, but I do want to bring this up. Again, I said earlier, one thing I'm watching tonight is how much of a bullpen does each team have to use, because I think that's going to be important on Tuesday. I suspect Vanderbilt will start Christian Little. It might be Patrick Riley. Riley has pitched out of the pen. You could see him. Again, if you don't have to use McIlvain, Maldonado, Murphy tonight, Those guys are fresher tomorrow to go to earlier. State, of course, Landon Sims is always the guy that you do not want to see. He has pitched 3 times in this tournament, thrown 52, 15, and 36 pitches. Last time he threw was the 26th. So he'll be fresh and ready tonight. Say if State enters the 7th with the lead, I would think we would see him at this point. But to me, a lot of what's important tonight is how the bullpen sets up tomorrow, because I don't know who State would start on a game to it. It could be Harding to maybe be charged with being more of an opener than a starter. But I'm interested to see how teams manage tonight with an eye towards Tuesday.
Yeah, I think the starters tonight have as much impact on this game as they do tomorrow. You know, how deep can they go? I don't think I don't think either coach is probably sitting there going, well, you know, if we can get tonight, we don't worry about tomorrow because there's a Wednesday. I don't think they're sitting there worried about that. And I don't think they're looking at Tuesday. You know, I think if they get into a situation and they got to burn guys tonight to win, they'll do it. And then, you know, tomorrow's tomorrow. And they'll worry about tomorrow and worry about Wednesday the next day. I think whoever wins this game tonight has an advantage because they only have to win one of the next 2 games, you know, to win the national championship. So they may play that a little bit, you know, get in the 9th inning and it's tied or you got a lead. You know, you might go, well, let's go ahead and get this one. You know, at least we have 1 and then we got 2 to play with the next 2 days. So I think the starters tonight, you know, have as much impact on tomorrow's game as they do this game, depending on which teams can save their bullpens.
One last point. As good as Jack Leiter has been, sometimes it can be a little bit rough out of the gate with him finding his control and command, really more his control than his command. And so one thing to watch tonight is the strike zone generous if he is not hitting his spots, because we've seen that be an issue for him and Kumar Rocker both at times this year. Certainly that is also a factor for Christian McLeod. But if you're going to get to Jack Leiter, part of that formula has been take a couple of free passes, get a couple of guys on, hope to get the big hit. Now, the last part is the really hard part to do. But that is one thing I will be watching is sometimes Jack Leiter has great starts, but there tends to be an inning or 2 towards the front of starts where it doesn't always go his way.
Yeah, the strike zones, you know, you look some of these games, you feel like sometimes, wow, that was a really generous strike. And then other pitches you see come in and you're like, okay, that looked like a strike, but they didn't call it. So, yeah, I think pitchers can get frustrated with different umpires, and I think offenses can get frustrated too with, you know, you see guys like Leiter and Rocker out there that are supposed to be the best of the best, and maybe they get that, you know, ball or 2 balls off the plate, maybe almost into the other batter's box, line of the batter's box, and you know, if they're hitting their spots and they get the calls, you know, they're even tougher to hit. And if they're hitting their spots and they don't get the calls, then they have to adjust, and then the hitters can maybe have a little bit of an advantage there as well. So it's interesting, you know, which teams, you know, the pitchers that hit their spots better and locate better, you know, in these games, you know, that's going to be a factor as well. And Leiter and Rocker both have, you know, when they hit their spots and they're getting a ball or 2 balls off the plate for strike, you know, that makes it even more difficult to hit.
Barry, any parting thoughts before we end the show today?
The one thing to me that jumps out that we haven't really talked about has been the, you know, the defensive play of these teams in the World Series. You know, Mississippi State's still yet to make an error in Omaha, but on offense they've hit into 5 double plays, 3 the other night against Texas. You know, where Vanderbilt has made 7 errors, the most of any team in the field in Omaha, and they've turned 2 double plays into 4 games. I think the defense is also going to be a factor. Will the errors all of a sudden catch up to Mississippi State, or will the errors that Vanderbilt has made be their dooming mark in the 3-game series with Mississippi State, or do they clean it up and play really good defense, and we have a well-pitched, well-defensive played game all the way around? And the other thing with this is you know, Vanderbilt's been there, done that. You know, they're trying to win back-to-back national titles. They're trying to win their third national championship since 2014. Mississippi State has been there, been there, been there, been there. It's never been able to win it. Is this the year they finally win it? They finally reversed the curse of Texas. They finally beat Texas in the NCAA tournament, something that they had not done, and beat them in Omaha. They'd beaten them in the NCAA tournament once, but not in Omaha, and just had struggled with Texas. And now they got that Texas monkey off their back. Now can they finally go out and win the national championship, which, believe it or not, Chris, they're the only team in the SEC that doesn't have a national championship in any sport.
Wow.
So they are carrying the banner tonight, not only for the school, but for the all past baseball teams and that's been there and trying to win. And is that pressure? Do they have that pressure? Or are they just a loose, easygoing kind of team that just feels like no matter what's going to happen, they're going to get it done? And those are intangibles that you look at, that you try to figure out who's going to win tonight and who's going to win this series.
Well, there is one other thing that impacts baseball games that we have not discussed. You're probably thinking it as I'm saying this, and that's the weather. And I just happened to look on weather.com, which, by the way, is not infallible by any stretch, and predicting the weather. God bless you if that's your business, because it's a tough one. I'm looking here. This is as of 10:05 Central Time on Monday morning. Chance of rain in Omaha, 50% at 4 p.m., 50% at 5 p.m., 60% at 6 p.m., 50% at 7 p.m., 40% at 8 p.m., and then 40% at 9, 50% at 10, 50% at 11 and 12, and on we go. Now, that should be moving out, according to this, at about 1 or 2 in the morning. If it happens, no rain forecast for Tuesday or Wednesday. So that's just one more thing, because, we haven't had enough complication in Omaha that might be worth the mention. Let's hope it doesn't come into play. But I just looked it up, and I'm just going, oh, no, not that.
Well, it happened in the softball World Series, and they pushed everything back a day and had to play the decided championship game on a Thursday afternoon. That drew outrage from everybody that they played a game in the afternoon. And if that had to be the case, they'd probably do that in Omaha here, because they did it in 2016 with Arizona and Coastal Carolina. They played for the national championship on Thursday at noon on ESPNU. So it's happened before, but hopefully that won't be an issue tonight. I'll tell you one thing that won't be an issue tonight. It won't be an issue. Well, might be an issue because they can't all get in, but I dare say there probably ain't a breathing body in Starkville today. They're all gone. They're all there. Their Twitter last night was begging tickets. I mean, I'll take 1, 4, whatever you got. Mississippi State fans are going to be there, and I think the dude effect that they call it has taken over in Omaha, and there will be Mississippi State fans there and it's going to be an incredible atmosphere there. They will have the crowd behind them, I think, in these 3 games, because it means, not that it doesn't mean anything to Vanderbilt, it does, but Mississippi State, being that only team, that's the only, as good as they are in baseball, and they've never won it. These people have followed them for years and years and years. They've never won the College World Series. They've never won a national championship in any sport. And this is a big deal to those folks in Starkville, and they will be there. Now, I say that, and one person that will not be there is Chris Lamonis' father, Mr. Lamonis. I learned yesterday he hasn't been able to travel. He's in the hospital, and I want to wish him well. I know that's tough for him that his dad can't be there, because I know how close they are. His dad was a Mississippi State student and taught at Mississippi State or worked at Mississippi State for a lot of years. So I know that's a big deal for them, and I wish Mr. Lamonis well, and I know he's been watching and enjoying the run that his son and his team has put on in the postseason, but wish them well. But they'll be Vanderbilt will be well represented, but the dude effect will be there as well, and I think it'll be a lot of fun the next 3 nights.
Yeah, I think State will probably have a 3 to 4 to 1 advantage in the stands in Omaha on Monday. All right, that's it for the Monday edition. We'll be back on Tuesday. Hopefully we'll have a baseball game to discuss. Thank you for listening. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Twitter and check us out at southeastern14.com. for all the content there. I'm Chris Lee. He's Barry Allen. We'll see you again on Tuesday.